The following recording is a benefit concert/reading of a book that I published a year ago called The Rise of Silence. Earlier today, I sat down with a good friend, Greg Muller, to read and discuss selected portions of the book. And this is the result. I called it a concert because I haven't heard of benefit readings, though I suppose they must exist. In any case, it is what it is, and since Greg does break into song now and then, I suppose that the word concert might apply. The reason for the event is to announce the re-release of my book, The Rise of Silence, and to help my friend Greg. Greg and his family have been kind enough to let me stay at their place since I returned to Utah, and I wanted to do something to say thank you. For as long as I have known Greg, he has been inclined to help the less fortunate, and I have watched him open his heart and dispense his meager means to bless those in need, sometimes even when that meant that he or his loved ones might do without the finer things of life. And so I want to do something for him in return for all of his kindness over the years. And so if any of you watching this event today can spare a donation of 50 cents or more, I will send a coupon that will give you free access to both a digital copy and an audiobook copy of my latest book, The Rise of Silence. Each of these items retails for $15, which comes to a combined value of $30, but you can have both today for a donation of 50 cents or more. Of course, I hope that you will consider increasing that donation if you can, but 50 cents is all I ask. Now, with that said, there is a glitch, since the way to send Greg your donation is using Venmo. And Venmo will only allow transfers of $1 or more, which means that two of you may have to get together to make a donation. And so, if you feel that this little reading was worthwhile, I hope that you will send a donation to Greg's Venmo account, which is Go Muller. That's Gomuller. So go to Venmo, type in Go Muller, and it'll bring up Greg. And in the Venmo comment, please put your email address so that I will know where to send the book. And one last comment before we start, more of an apology really. You see, the original discussion was about an hour and a half long, and I forgot to press record till halfway through. All the same, I believe that what you'll see was the best half of our discussion. And so without further ado, here's the last half of the Muller Family Benefit Concert/reading of my latest book, The Rise of Silence.
It was hinted at by Jonathan. I mean, I'm done with approximations of the truth. I'm done honoring them or over honoring them. And so you go, well, what are approximations to the truth? What I'm telling you is if you're human, that's pretty much all you have. No matter how good and religious you are, guess what you have? You don't have the ideal truth because it probably can't be contained. There's words cannot utter such truths. That's the ideal. And so what we're left with is approximations. And so I do want to specify that it's like the song says, um, come on, Greg, you can pull it up with the Holy Spirit's help. Um, uh, I was out on the street just trying to survive, scratching to stay alive. You get, oh, here it comes. You got to learn to crawl before you learn to walk. Now, see, those are truths, but I just couldn't listen to all that righteous talk. I was out on the street just trying to survive, scratching to stay alive. And so the things that ultimately make us alive are oftentimes not in the book. Hey, this wasn't in the manual, Jesus. That's my life with Jesus. Like, hold it, this wasn't covered in Sunday school. They didn't put this in the manual. The correlation committees failed to tell me that I should be doing this. And so, yeah, like Jesus TV, like, I don't remember Jesus TV. And Jesus says, I guess, like, no, it's a thing, Greg. And then he starts explaining it to me. Well, it's not in any book, not yet, but it will be someday. I don't think I'm being the one writing it, but it'll be on TV. All right, Jonathan, we ready to go to the next one?
Almost. I think that's a good, yeah, so we just need direct contact. We need a relationship.
Yeah, and those
Yeah,
approximations to the truth are a crutch, a blessed crutch.
right.
If he didn't give us that crutch, we'd like, well, then we can't worship you, we can't follow you, Jesus, because your ways are higher than our ways, just like you said. So it's like, um, so we have to take these approximations as Christians, as Muslims, as even atheists, like, okay, so we're going to take approximations to the truth. You know how lame that is? I want the real thing. I want to know for sure. And then some people will overestimate what they have. They'll think it's the ideal truth. And they'll start, what's the word, shoving it down our throats or leaning on it a little too heavy for, dude, that's a crutch. All right, loosen up. You got to throw that crutch out. And if a new one, a better one comes along, uh, bring that. But that's all we're going to get in this lifetime. Is even our truths will be crutches. That feel so true, and we can testify to them, and they'll probably work for us till we die. But then we'll go up to heaven like, oh, this is kind of like medical science. We thought we had the truth, and in some way we did, but in a significant way we did it. Yep.
Okay. So before I go on to the next one, I'm just going to say, for all those who are actually still here, let me check something. Yeah, it stays that way. Okay. So I just wanted to remind everybody this is benefit concert and that I am trying to raise money for Greg's family. He wants to spend some of it on helping me, but I'm hoping he'll spend some of it on himself. If you want a copy of this book that we're reading from, and if you'd like, or an audiobook copy, I will send you one. I'll email you one. If you can make a donation of 50 cents or more to Greg Muller and his family, and it's Go Muller is the Venmo. And if you want to pay some other way, you can just message Greg and he'll tell you how to do that. And I'll put that in. I'm recording this for my YouTube channel as well. So,
And only do it if Jesus tells you to.
yeah. So basically, I'm going to, yeah, like I'll put that information and how to
You guys
contact
feel
us.
free. We like noisy on our Jesus TV. So if you want to sing, you're welcome to come sing.
So, anyways, um, so yeah, I'll have that information in my YouTube description. So let's find another poem about something else.
Jesus has given us this morning a venue. The studio is called Coffee Depot. Jesus doesn't let me drink coffee. I have no interest in drinking coffee other than Jesus coffee, which is water, very watery coffee. It's called Jesus Living Waters. So every time I drink water, I kind of forget, like, oh, this is coffee, isn't it, Jesus? Yeah, this is Jesus coffee. Tastes quite pure and low calorie. He's never made a mocha water, Jesus water, coffee. Yeah, see, those are all approximations to the truth, by the way. I could geek out all day long on approximations to the truth, Jesus. That's kind of what you have me do. And sometimes my approximations are way, way low. Like, well, Greg, that's pretty low. That's not close to the ideal. And I think Jesus is just having me check out the range. How far can I go away from the truth? Like President President-elect Trump, what did he call it? He weaves. So Jesus has me weave. Did you ever see him talking about weaving? Yeah, because he's pretty good at it. He'll remember where he was and he'll weave a conversation and then come back. So he's good at coming back. It is actually one of my gifts too. Sometimes I get caught in a rabbit hole, like, why am I talking about this? But here we are. We're back on Jesus TV. We're still on Jesus TV. Jonathan's about to read us from his book, his poetic book. What's the name of the book, title of the book?
The title is The Rise of Silence. So,
Nice.
all right, this one's called The River. I love this one. It's one of my favorites. So I'll read the introduction. This poem was written just days before another journey. So I've spent several years traveling and going places I felt like I was supposed to go, and I go and end up learning something there that I apparently was supposed to learn, take a job that I was supposed to take, do something. Um, And I was feeling like it was time to move on again when I wrote this. Just days before another journey, called to the road once again, with no idea where it would lead, and feeling grateful for the old river that carries me along, grateful for the spirit that shapes my soul and gives me life, and for the thing I become by changing with his changes and letting him carry me deep into the valley, out into the sea of his perfect intent for me. And here's the poem. It's called The River. I ride upon your current, where I do not know. Let me start again. I ride upon your current, where I do not know, but I drift along with sky above and you beneath, and without a thought, old river, you carry me away, deep into the valley, out into the sea. You drown me in the tide of the thing I meant to be. You are wiser than the mountains, old river, and taller than the trees, for it's you that keeps on moving, ever changeless in your changes, and always being, shaping, giving life to everything you see. Give me life, old river, give me peace, peace in knowing that you know where we are going. Peace in knowing that I, though but a speck upon your current, am ever more becoming, ever changing in your changes, ever more a tumbling current, ever endlessly with thee. That's it. Any thoughts, Greg?
Yeah. So once again, my mind's drawn to the blunt fact that, like, all right. So we go to interpretation, and who's the river? Okay. So I'm in Jesus kindergarten, so I'm going to take a guess and say Jesus River is Jesus. I mean, the river, which I already renamed Jesus River. So my mind does that. Like, if it's a river and it's doing something good, then it's a Jesus River. Uh, but that's what I'm drawn to is my need for blunt, because I also drift along, and I need to make the obvious inescapable because I escape from Jesus so easily. Are you kidding me? Woo! That's because I grew up in an antichrist society. I don't know about you, but I feel like I've grown up in an antichrist cult. And so my interpretation of this is I like it. I like the river, the idea that Jesus is a river, taking us to places, and though I but a speck upon his current. So he's got other things going on that I'm not part of. But today, my part of the river takes me to Coffee Depot with this guy, this beloved soul here. Curious, curious creature in God's zoo, human zoo.
Yeah, so that's the idea of the poem is that it it carries us away, it takes us someplace. A choice to get on a river is a choice to be carried somewhere. It's not calculated. If you're Huck Finn, getting on that raft, it's like, nowadays we've got maps, we know where it goes, but he was just a 12-year-old boy. Who knows where that river would wind and where it would take him? And the river is a great, powerful force. And so, obviously, the illusion, is that the right word? The correlation is the divine. Where is God leading me? And that's what I was preparing to do as I was preparing for the next journey. I was kind of saying, oh, here we go again. I'm getting back on the river. I don't know where I'm going yet. I just can feel it's time to go. And I'm just trusting. I'm trusting this river to carry me away out into the valley, deep into the sea. Where do all the rivers lead? To a really deep, deep place. A place that's unfathomable, the ocean, right? And so we're being carried away. There's an abandonment, the idea of an abandonment um, to the reality of the life that's created by the Creator. Um, and I'll address the Greg's thought about Christ. So um, it's interesting. Those who've already been following my works know that I don't, uh, I'm not always blunt in the same way, in the sense that I have my own definite perspectives about Jesus Christ and about the cosmos, but I've come to them like you've come to yours in my own way. And it's like there may be some who they see the divine right now in some other way. And that doesn't mean, in my mind, that doesn't mean that it's not the person that or the being that I worship that's at the forefront of carrying them down their own river journey, and that it will not lead to them one day believing the same way I do. But that's why, Greg and I maybe are a good contrast in this. It's like Greg is bluntly putting out there his views, um, but it's more than that. Um, uh, they're more than views, right? And there's a reality around all of these things. But here's what's fascinating to me is that we don't have to get it all right in order to be on that river. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It's like, it's like, can I say even though, if, even though I have a definite concept about who I've been following in this journey, that doesn't mean that I understand the river that's been carrying me. So I'm hesitant as I found, I know that there are some people who will very much insist that unless you get the name right of the person that you're worshiping, that you're all wrong. And I don't see it that way. It's like we can very much be on our own journey. And in the end, what we'll all find out is that our understandings of God and of the divine were incomplete. And so and I know Greg does this too. It's like, um, he's always mentioning our upbringing has like an article of faith that said something to the effect of like we allow all men to worship God, who, where, and what they may. And I know that he has that view as well. So here's the thing that I find encouraging, that I think is uniting, is that if we can all realize that we are on a river being carried somewhere, then um, then we can be united even if we don't have the same name in mind or the same being in mind. It's like we can be open to the fact that God may change our views in time. And so I think that's my
No, I
comment
like
there.
it, and I'm glad that you commented on that. I um, I do. I love that you're a friend who um, moves naturally. God has you move naturally with a poetry, and um, He does me as well. So when I look at this poem, I think of a poem that Jesus wrote with Geddy Lee and Rush um, that has to do with Huck Finn and the river. Um, it starts out, today's Tom Sawyer, he gets high on you. So just reinterpret it. Jesus Christ, he gets high on you. The space he invades will see you through. That's your heart, by the way. And he gets you on a river. And then this song, one of my favorite parts of it, is it says, put aside the alienation, get on with the fascination, the real relation, the underlying theme for those who wish to be. And so that's what we wish to be. We like to, if we can, just be, can I be you, Jesus? Which the approximation we can do is he says, well, how about I possess your body, and then you'll pretty much be me. You'll be doing what I want you to do, and so forth. And so the river, that will always connect for me because this is how God talks to me with music that he had me spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and many more hours than that listening to classic rock music, preparing so that I could find those songs redeemed. And then he would sing them with me for eternity, along with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, Freddie Mercury, and Johnny Cash. Mhm. So, anyways, that's what I believe. And so, not only can we name Jesus a different name, like the universe. So, some people, I can see why, like, so that's what I thought about, like the universe and the river. Also, the universe, when they call Jesus the universe, it kind of implies, like, oh my goodness, that's pretty huge when you study it. Like, we're just such a small speck. Yeah, that's what that name implies. Just kind of like king. Well, that would make me like a lowly servant. Yes, there you go. So set God upon a pedestal, or in the case of the river, a wild and meandering, sometimes rollicking, but like Jonathan points out, that you're going on a mystery tour, and that's of course why Jesus had wrote those books with Mark Twain, certain books, and for certain Huck Finn, he wanted people to poetically see the divine. And so, yeah, Jonathan knows I don't object. I just simply respond to poetic designations of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and my response is the counterpoint. Um, the river has a name. Yep, it's called Jesus River.
Good, good. So I just thought I'd mention again, anybody who'd like a copy of this book, I'll send both the audiobook and the ebook format. Just send 50 cents or more to Greg and his family, any amount that you want, really,
Only if Jesus tells you to,
right? If Jesus tells you
or
to.
if the devil tells you to, you can.
Don't do what the
No, I'm
devil
just
says.
kidding.
Don't do what
Don't
the
no,
devil
don't do the
says.
devil says.
Um, so please do that. And oh, I should have said this earlier. Maybe I'll do another recording at the beginning of the other one. Make sure to put your email address in the comment of the when you send the money, so that we know where to send the book and the audiobook.
And I'll tell you, this is like fascinating to me. Jonathan and Jesus have gone door to door. And it's like somebody going with a squeegee and washing people's windows in the streets. Jonathan will go door to door and he will ask money to help keep food going in his mouth and maybe gas in his tank. And then he offers them a book. And Jesus says, "What's that like, Greg?" I'm like, "It's like everything in this society. It's like Stephen Covey. Hey, come to give me some money, and then I'll give you a book." And like 98% of people don't read the book. They intend to, but that's nice. It's an intention. And so this Jonathan actually sends these people, so he'll get their email and he'll send them a book. And I think it's wonderful. It's a wonderful way to beg. Another way you can beg is wash windows. Another way you can beg is I was building a chicken coop, um, and then the guy gave me money. So many different ways. And so we're begging today on Jesus TV, and we're getting comfortable with begging. We're like, okay, so we're the beggars, Jesus. Somebody's got to be the beggars in this show. So, all right, well, here we are. And so, what that's going to fund is Road Base. That's going to set a little platform so the homeless people that live on my property. Right now, there's currently one that's quite the poet. Road Base, so that person doesn't get stuck in the mud because we're placing him, making a little RV type place for him. Or her, could be anybody. All right, Jonathan.
Okay. So before I start this next one, this was one that you told me was one of your favorites. So we're going to do this one next. It's the next one in the book. And this one may be the last one. We'll see, because I think we're probably at about an hour. I don't know. But we'll see. We'll do this one, and maybe there'll be another one. Um, so I wanted to say one thing. I find this kind of interesting and fun in a way. So I'm asking you guys, can you send some money to my friend Greg so that he can help the homeless? And of course, who's the homeless person? He's helping me. Yeah, for whatever it's worth. I do happen to have a job at the moment, although we'll see how long I can keep it. I have a
Yeah,
hard time with jobs.
this would be my new business model. I get a bunch of homeless people, then I have them go around getting money for me to help take care of them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
then I don't have to beg myself.
Well,
Awesome.
one thing I wanted to say is that I find it interesting that Greg, maybe you don't think it's quite as much of what it's a scam. Um, I I've watched Greg over the years, and Greg has a heart for people who he has a heart for homeless people. And I'm not the only person he's helped over the years. I've watched him shuttle people around. I've watched him carrying food out to people, offering to help people move on the Forest Service land. He's constantly in this state, and it's an interesting thing. He and I both have felt drawn that there are going to be people, and so far God's just brought them to us one at a time, really. And like he said, I don't think we can handle more than one at a time. But I kind of wonder if that's, I, the world has the corporate model. Give us a bunch of money and we'll take care of a bunch of people. But I kind of have this sense it's like I can see something that to me is more delicious. And that's the idea that God changes each of us, and so that each of us, instead of seeking a bigger home, a better home, more cars, better cars, more than what we need, or that it's like our whole heart is to to help. And so every person becomes every a homeless shelter. Every person is bringing in the people who can't make their ways along it. The fascinating thing about that too is I can see that it jumps over the issue of corruption, because if it's me and I have a little piece of land, I say, yeah, you can park here for a while. I can judge, and if I'm going to give somebody some money, I can look at them and judge, like, well, the last time I gave you money, you spent it on lottery tickets, and I'm just not going to do it this time. I can decide. Whereas the corporation has a harder time, so they've got to make everybody fill out forms and stuff like that. But what if each one of us was seeking to draw into our own hearts the homeless? Because a home is way more than four walls. When you have a place in the heart of another, you have a home. And that's why, as Greg talks about Christ, it's like that's the great thing of the story of Christ, is this idea that somebody had each of us enough in his heart to give his own life. It's a pretty powerful story, a pretty powerful reality. Many would argue, and I would argue too. It's a pretty powerful reality, but it's a sacred thing that God has spoken to my heart, and more than just worshiping in the sense of wanting to you know go and sing a song, which singing's good, you know, but more than the things we do that way, it's like I find myself longing to make a sacrifice that's similar to his sacrifice, to give in a way that he would give. So anyway, that's Greg's heart, and that's part of why I feel so good, and I would really love it if you guys felt to send Greg some money to help him take care of his own family, not just by road base, but to take care of his own family, and then have an abundance, so that, you know, what whenever I leave and somebody else comes into his path and he needs to help it, he'll have the means to do it. So anyway, let's read this poem, and then we'll probably call it a close. But yeah,
Sounds good.
all right. So this one's called Tenuous. I love that my life is tenuous. There is a comfort, a peace in not knowing, but it is different than the world's peace. The world finds peace in things remaining the same. I find peace in the winds that blow from the unseen place and carry me this way and that. The world finds peace in the false belief that it can preserve its life. I find peace in the fact that I've already died. and that I no longer care to preserve my life, but trust that it is preserved to spite and perhaps because of my sacred wanderings. My peace is like a river, always moving, always winding, never knowing when it may drop like Niagara Falls, or empty out into the ocean and cease to be a river at all, but be absorbed into the great unfathomable beyond. And I wonder if I make the world feel nervous. They do not like the thing that I've become. For that reason, I do not stay in one place too long. I am a squatter in the world, and the world permits me to be as so long as I keep moving on, moving on. And so far, I have not made enough of a ruckus for the world to cast me out into that eternal place. And I am glad for that because I love the world and I have a thing to say before I go. And so, until then, my life is tenuous, thank God. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, well, this poem conjures to my mind a word. This poem is called tenuous. Awkward is the word that comes to mind for me. That when I have my interview with Jesus after this is all done, he will look at me and smile and say, "Awkward, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, life is freaking awkward. Social life is especially awkward." Yeah, but awkward, of course, reminds me of the three dancing couples: truth, trust, and commitment, which is who Jesus is. He's truth, he's trust, he's commitment. But those those forces dance with their corollary pairs, which are truth and ambiguity. The more I know, the less I understand. Trust, and the more trust I have in Jesus, the more vulnerable he makes me. And commitment, the more committed I am, the riskier my life becomes. And those are the corollary pairs, and that's why I like this poem.
Good. Yeah, yeah, I think so. And it's so that's a scary thing, I suppose. I mean, it is for all of us, but I think we all know that, being vulnerable and surrendering to the vicissitudes of life is better than being rigid and um, trying to navigate life on your own terms. And oftentimes, and it's the sad thing that often we have to learn by experience is that we often hurt others whenever we try to navigate the world based on our own terms because we can't see well enough, right? And that goes back to the poem we read before. It's like, why do we surrender to the great river? You know, why do we stop fighting and let it carry us where it's going to carry us? Why do we give up on our dreams? Um, there's a fascinating thing that Christ said, which was he says, if you'll lose yourself, you'll find yourself, and if you try to find yourself, you'll lose yourself. So that's fascinating. It's like to find our dreams, our real dreams, we have to give up on our dreams.
And then we have to give up on that comfort. So I like that second line. There's a comfort, a peace in not knowing. Well, there's also a comfort and peace in knowing. That's the opposite side of that is being on a trip where you go like, where are we going? Oh, who knows? Like this makes me uncomfortable. How long is this going to last? Well, who knows? Like who's driving the car? I mean, why am I on this? Get off this boat. But Jonathan's emphasis in this poem is about there's a comfort in not knowing, but it's different than the world's peace.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, there are some people who, I really doubt you've gotten to this point in the program, you stayed this long. If you don't know what we're talking about, it would have been like, these guys are nuts, you know? But it's like, there really are. Um, but if you've gotten this far, you probably know. I doubt that anybody who's like, no, I'm going to navigate my own path and I'm going to do exactly what I want. I'm going to set goals and don't get me wrong, we all live by goals. We all have to be moving towards things all the time. Even if you're in the river, it's like, and you're going through the rapids, it's like, you're listening, to your intuition, and you're watching, and you're trying to get around the boulders and stuff. It's not like you're passive all the time because you're going down a river. It's a very active thing, but we give up control, right? I mean, I think you guys have all experienced that. It's like you come to this point where it's like the big picture, the big picture, well, that we have to completely let go of. And even in the details, we have to let go. But maybe in the details, we let go of everything we can't do because we are supposed to try to navigate what is put into our hands to navigate. But I love the image of the river in these two poems because rivers are deadly. And it's like that's the reality of this life is it's like it's deadly. Every single person who lives eventually is going to die, and it's like you just don't know how soon. And so you can live your life trying to pretend that it's not a big powerful force like the Mississippi and that you can really control it, or you can live your life with kind of like this, well, I'm going to do what I can, but it's a river, right? And at any moment, because I don't know what's coming, it may drop like Niagara Falls and I may plummet to my death. At any moment, I may go out into the sea, and it's like, and be absorbed into, um, into the great beyond. Maybe that's what death is in a way. It's like we still keep being ourselves. I'm not, the Eastern view that you still don't have an identity. I don't know that I subscribe to that, but it's above my pay grade. The point is that it's a river, and I'm grateful to be on this river with Greg. He's my good friend, and I'm grateful we could do this today. I'll say this in closing. Just I pray, I hope that you'll consider if you got an extra 50 cents, if you got something, if you can dig it out of the couch, or whatever. Of course, it's got to go through Venmo, but um, if you got 50 cents or maybe more, any amount you choose, um, any amount that you can choose to help Greg and his family, what he's trying to do, if you'll send him a donation to Go Muller is his Venmo account. If you'll do that, then and put your email address, I will send you an ebook and an audiobook of this book. So.
All right. And I just want to point out one part of the favorite part of this poem here you have, Tenuous. I find peace in the fact that I've already died, that I no longer care to preserve my life. And so, what I like about that is it's the poetic way of talking about being born again. To be born again, there's we need to suffer a death approximation, and that's what Jesus was talking to me this morning about. He said, "You're partaking of my death. You're partaking of my life too, but you're partaking of my death." When we take the sacrament, we're actually partaking of his death. When you partake of a carrot, you're partaking of the death of a carrot. You're involving yourself in the death. So when I'm sleeping, it's an approximation or a poetic approximation of the death of me and Jesus. When we wake up, it's an approximation of being born again. And so, and then, anyways, that's on my mind. That's all I had to say. Thank you for joining us on Jesus TV. And we hope to do many, many more of these while we're still living on the earth. God is with you and possessing you until we meet again.
And for those watching on YouTube, thank you for anybody who's made a donation and even those that just listened. I'm grateful we could do this. And the name of this YouTube channel is The Trackless Path, and I wish you all the best in your own trackless path that leads to the divine. I felt once that it's like the path of birds, it makes no tracks. One can't follow another, and another can't follow the one. We can help each other. We can, share allegories and things we've learned, but it's a path we have to walk, and it's particular to each of us. And this book is called The Rise of Silence. So if we listen, if we can get quiet, we can hear a still small voice which will lead us in the right direction. And no matter what place you're at, no matter what you think about the divine, your thoughts or whatever, um, it's you don't have to get it all right to be able to begin the journey. And I wish you all the best in your own journey. And I'm so grateful that you joined us today. And God bless you all.